Hi guys, this is Fo. So I'm very excited to have here my copy of Bruce Lee's His Greatest Hits, released by Criterion Edition or Criterion Collection. As you know, Criterion likes to take a movie and kind of give it a special treatment. I'm gonna not lie, but I'm not that excited about this Criterion version, and I say that as a big fan. And unfortunately, I just feel like this is kind of like Criterion just kind of phone it in with this collection. There are some good stuff about this, but I'll point out all my kind of disappointment in this release. But yeah, but before we actually talk about Bruce Lee, we actually really need to talk about the Shaw brothers. And so, as you know, Bruce Lee starred in three film with Golden Harvest. There is another film, but called Game of Death, that he never finished. But Golden Harvest actually made a film anyway, based on 8 minutes of Bruce Lee footage. And he made one American movie called Enter the Dragon by Warner Brothers. All right, so about the Shaw brothers. So in the 50s, the Shaw brothers were like dominant in the kung fu movies. I mean, in America, most people just remember Bruce Lee as kind of like the head, the face of kung fu cinema. Started in 1971. But even prior to Bruce Lee, the Shaw brothers were producing amazing kung fu movies, such as Chang Che's Vengeance and The One-Armed Swordsman in 1967. So these have actually predated Bruce Lee, but unfortunately, a lot of companies, the Shaw brothers weren't interested in America. So basically, they did release like Five Fingers of Death, aka King Boxer. Actually, the title's King Boxer, but in America it's called Five Fingers of Death. But I don't know. It's just the Shaw Brothers really didn't have a interest in the American product, in the American market, and for a long time they actually didn't release official VHS, and so you have to buy bootlegs, and this is my bootleg copy of Five Deadly Venoms, which I've long got official releases of these. But I mean, that's how starving the American market is for good kung fu cinema. So yeah, so I will talk about the good things about this greatest hits. So Criterion Edition, what they did well is that they collected all of Bruce Lee's film on Blu-ray, and I think they're from a 2K transfer, and yes, a newly restored 2K digital restoration, and a 4K. Actually, they're based on the 4K, and the as far as the it looks like. According to here, the theatrical version of Enter the Dragon is in 2K. But what it is that they got scans of these directly from the rights holder. So the Big Boss, they're all owned by Fortune Star. Fortune Star is now the current rights holder for Golden Harvest film. And so they originally released, they did a scan of it and released the DVD version of it. So this is their DVD version. And it's actually a very nice release. Unfortunately, the problem with this is that it only contained the Chinese or Mandarin dialogue. And so you can get subtitles on these, but they don't have the English dub. So if you're like an American who wants to hear the American dub, they're not on these discs. Now it includes all of his Golden Harvest film, including The Big Boss, Enter the Dragon, Fist of Fury, Way of the Dragon, Game of Death, and then Game of Death 2, which are I do not consider Game of Death or Game of Death 2, part of the Bruce Lee canon films. But you know, they still use footage of Bruce Lee. It's very exploitative, actually, based, you know, on those two movies. So yeah. So what I like, I'm gonna start with what I like about Criterion is that, you know, it's a nice release. It has, I think, a 5-disc or 6-disc. So it's 1, 2, 3. Okay, so it looks like 7 disc, 8 disc, no, 7 disc. So it includes like 7 discs, and the special supplement is like a kind of like a magazine style of like a 70s like you know, magazine from that era or in that style. I'm kind of, like I said, I was kind of disappointed in this release. The special features, so yeah, so continuing what I like is that they collected all the special features from the Shout Factory, and as well as including Enter the Dragon. So it's kind of rare to get a Bruce Lee set that has all of his movies, including Enter the Dragon, because Enter the Dragon is owned by Warner Brothers. And so Warner and Golden Harvest obviously are not the same company, so whenever they release box sets of these, they do not include those other companies. But Criterion, you know, probably got the rights to all the movies, so for the first time, in my opinion, they collected all Bruce Lee's movies. So The Big Boss, Fist of Fury, Way of the Dragon, Enter the Dragon, and then Game of Death. Well, like I said, Game of Death I do not consider a real film. So basically all 4 of Bruce Lee's masterwork. And what's really interesting about Bruce Lee is that for a very brief moment in time, he really represented Kung Fu cinema. But like I said, even Kung Fu cinema had gone before Bruce Lee and after Bruce Lee as well. I mean, Gordon Liu is basically, and Jackie Chan, Jet Li. These are the people that follow Bruce Lee. But even prior to Bruce Lee, there was so many other films. So yeah, so I'm going to talk about what I do not like about this release. First of all, was it really necessary to get like 8 disc of just on basically 4 movies on 8 disc? You can see something like Lone Wolf and Cub, which had like, you know, 6 film, but they managed to fit that all on like 2 disc or whatever. And you can see it's a as you can see, it's a much slimmer mix. The other problem I had is that it's not consistent in this art style, where the Criterion logo is clearly marked here, but here it's kind of part of the artwork. I mean, you can see other Criterion release where basically you see that extra band that is cleared out. So it's not, I feel like it's not consistent. I mean, if you have it on your shelf, it just looks awful, in my opinion. They do have it on this side, but not on the other side. The other problem I have is that the audio commentaries are clearly identified as Shout Factory. Now, Shout Factory had the rights to these before, and this is just like a bare bone, you know, Big Boss, Fist of Fury by Shout Factory. And basically, I believe they got the same transfer from these on the Criterion version. So I feel like you're really not getting anything new. The new thing that they tout on here is that they got a 2K restoration of the Enter the Dragon. And so previously, I think Enter the Dragon, we got the DVD release and a Blu-ray release. And I believe these are, they call this the Special Edition, which is an extended Enter the Dragon, which as for a Bruce Lee fan, I think actually you get more footage of Bruce Lee and stuff, so it's good in my opinion. But for Criterion, they decided to tout the theatrical release of the Enter the Dragon as his main thing. And the problem is there's no commentary on that one. There is the special edition of Enter the Dragon on the supplement disc of this. So disc 7 or disc 6 has Enter the Dragon, this version of in the Criterion version, which also include the audio commentary from this version. So like I said, was not impressed with how they handled that. And then as far as this bonus, they did include Game of Death 1 and 2 on extra disc. And like I said, I really don't consider those are part of the Bruce Lee film. What it is Golden Harvest saw that there were so many companies making Bruce-sploitation movies where they kind of have fake Bruce Lee, like Bruce Lee, Bruce Lee, and they decided to go in on their version of that genre called Game of Death, and so they made up they hired a lookalike, and basically the whole story leads up to the 8 minutes or 12 minutes that Bruce Lee filmed before his death. And so yeah, I mean, not a great moment in Golden Harvest's career, but yeah. So 1971, basically the best film on here is The Big Boss. I really like Way of the Dragon as well, but Way of the Dragon is more like a comedy, so that might not be for everybody. But I think it's really ahead of its time because comedy kung fu, but from Jackie Chan and others, have really rise up and kind of replace the traditional kung fu movies in the the 70s and 80s. But yeah, as far as so if you only own the Bruce Lee on DVDs, this is actually a really good set to get, actually, because you're upgrading to Blu-ray and you're getting all of his films. So I recommend it. But if you've already owned like Blu-ray version on previous release, such as the Warner Brothers, which I think is actually a very good release, because it includes extra supplements such as like a patch, photos of display and postcards and all the stuff that you don't get in the Criterion edition. So if you really love Game of Death, I really think you should check out the Warner release, because they did a pretty good job. But if you're looking just to own all of Bruce Lee's films with English dubs as well, check out the Criterion edition. So yeah. But I mean, when I say I'm disappointed, I just wish they kind of had done more to make this a special release. I feel like they just kind of phoned it in by reusing all the special features from previous material that was available, and then slapping the Criterion name on it. What I would have loved to see is, to have like somebody write a booklet, because one of my favorite thing about Criterion is that they'll have like really special books to be included with the release of the Blu-ray. And I mean, they could have just maybe printed scripts or anything to get like a really nice file, and maybe just reduce the discs. I think 7 discs or 8 discs is just I think too much. Well, I mean, I feel like they could fit at least 2 movies on 1 disc, but for some reason they decided each film had its own disc, except for the supplement. The supplemental one had 2 films on each disc, so I don't know. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, I think it does look really big as well. So yeah, and I think it's going to go nicely on my with my rest of the collection. So I do appreciate that they kind of contain it within the digital format of the Blu-ray release. Unlike Zatoichi, which had its own huge box, which doesn't fit anywhere, which I really dislike, even though I love the movies. Alright, thanks for watching.